Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we'll be going over the math homework for Class P. This is for session U14. Alright, for question number 1, it says Emma goes to the bakery and decides to purchase 3 muffins and 2 cupcakes. If the bakery charges $5 per muffin and $3 per cupcakes, how much more does she spend on muffins and cupcakes? So here, you go to the bakery and you want to get 3 muffins. And it's $5 each. So that's going to be $15 overall. For the cupcakes, it's 2 cupcakes. And it's $3 per cupcake. So if you multiply 2 times 3, that's going to be $6. And you want to know how much more did you spend on muffins than cupcakes, not. And it's a weird typo there. If you subtract these two, 15 minus 6 will be $9. Excuse me, $9 more on muffins. So that's going to be choice E. Next, for question number 2, if 2x is equal to 5 and 3y is equal to 9, then 40 minus 6x minus 6y is equal to. So here you have to solve for x, and then you also have to solve for y. So to solve for x, you know that 2x is equal to 5. So if you divide both sides by 2, you can figure out that x is equal to 5 over 2. Now you also know that 3y is equal to 9. If you divide both sides by 3, you can isolate y and get that y is equal to 3. Now for both of these, you're going to have to substitute in to x and also to y to then solve for this expression. So you have to do the parentheses first. So if you substitute in, you'll be doing 40 minus, and in parentheses, that's 6 times 5 halves minus 6 times 3. So when you multiply 6 times 5 halves, the 6 and 2 cancels out because they both have a factor of 2. So that'll give you the new expression, 40 minus 3 times 5, or 15, minus 18. Now inside the parentheses, you have negative 3. So when you subtract a negative 3, what you're really doing is adding. So you have 40 plus 3, which is equal to 43. And that's choice D. So just be careful when you subtract a negative here. Next, for number 3, a rectangle with an area of 21 and one side of length 3 has one vertex at the point 0, 0, which is the origin, on the rectangular coordinate plane system. So this is the normal XY Cartesian plane. Which of the following points could lie on the interior of this rectangle? So interior means inside. You want a shape that's a point that's inside the shape. Now you know that one side is equal to 3 and its area is 21. So the area of a rectangle is length times width. So if you know that one side is 3, the other side has to be 7, because you have to do 21 is equal to 3 times 7. So once you know that one vertex is on 0, 0, so you can draw a graph. One of the points is at 0, 0, and you don't know which way the rectangle is oriented, because it could be horizontal or it could be vertical. So the other side can be on 3, 7, which will give you this rectangle, or it could also be something that looks like this, where it could be 7, 3. So you have to consider both of them when looking at the point. So for choice A, 0, 4 could either be outside the rectangle or could be on the side, on the edge of the rectangle, so that's not going to work. This point here is actually 3, 3, so 4, 4 would be on the outside for choice B, so that's also wrong. 5, 2 could actually be inside the rectangle. If the rectangle is oriented horizontally, 5, 2 would be over here. So that could be the answer. 7, 4 would be outside. And then in choice E, 8, 2 would also be outside as well. So choices choice A is inside the is on the rectangle, not inside it, and the other choices are all outside the rectangle. Only choice C is the only one that could be inside the rectangle. Again, the keyword here is could. Next one, number 4, if A and B are integers, then 70 is less than A times B is less than 76, then all of the following could be values of A except. So A and B are integers, which means they are whole numbers. And for these whole numbers, A times B has to be between 70 and 76. So if you look at all the whole numbers between these two, the product A times B could either be 71, 72, 73, 74, or 75. Just go through all the choices and see which one could be possible. So for choice A, 5 could be possible because you have 5 times 15, which is 75. So it could be choice A. Again, we're looking for the one that except, so where it can't be equal to that number. In choice B, we see that it can't be 7 because none of these numbers are in the 7 times table. So because they're not on 7 times table, they're all going to be wrong. So choice B is probably the answer. But just to be safe, go through all the choices. Choice C is 8. 8 times 9 is 82, so that could potentially be it. For choice Z, 12. 6 times 12 is equal to 72. That could be it. And then 18 times 4 would be 72. So that's also not it. So the answer is choice B because none of these numbers are a multiple of B. Next for number 5, which of the following expressions represents the statement 7 less than 1/3 of n is equal to 7 more than 3 times n? So you have to turn the word sentence to a number sentence. So here, the first keyword is less than. Less than means subtract, but you got to flip the order. So for example, 3 less than 5 is actually 5 minus 3, not 3 minus 5. So 7 less than 1/3 of n means it's something minus 7. So you know there's a minus 7 somewhere in there. Specifically, it's 1/3 of n, and of means multiply. So you have 1/3 times n minus 7, and that is equal to. So that's an equal sign. And on the other side, you have 7 more than 3 times m. So that would be 7 plus, because more than means plus. And 3 times m is 3m. So just 3 times m here. So you have to go through all the choices to see which one matches this setup. And none of them looks like this actually. So you're going to have to rearrange this a little bit to try to match it to one of the choices. So we can see that you can multiply everything by 3 because you have 1/3 n here, and none of the other choices have 1/3 n, but you do see a 3n. So maybe that could help you out. If you multiply both sides by 3, you'll have to distribute. And that'll give you n minus 21 is equal to 21 plus 9m. And from here, you can add 21 to both sides. That will give you n is equal to 42 plus 9m. And here we see that it looks kind of like choice C, but it's not, so that's not it. So there's definitely a typo somewhere in here. None of the other choices match. All right, next for number 6. Set A consists of all the prime numbers less than 12. Set B consists of all the odd numbers less than 12 and also greater than 0. Which of the following represents the intersection of sets A and B? So a set is just a list of numbers, and these numbers are called elements in a set. Now here, we're looking for the keyword and intersection. So intersection represents the common elements in both of these sets, and it's represented by this the symbol, like an upside down U. So for set A, you can denote the set using these curly brackets. It's all the prime numbers less than 12. So you have 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. Remember, prime numbers have exactly 2 factors. So they don't really show up in a times table that much. So the 2 factor are just 1 in itself. Whereas set B is all the positive odd numbers, and it's greater than 0. So it has to be positive. So just 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Now this intersection is A intersect B is only the common element. So that's 3, 5, 7, and 11. So that's choice E. The other thing that you need to be aware of is the union. And a union is all the elements together. And when you have all the elements together, you don't want to repeat anything. So the union would include 1, 2, and 9. All right, next for number 7. A petri dish contains 5 bacteria at 8 a.m., 15 at 9 a.m., and 45 at 10 a.m. How many bacteria will be present at noon? So you go from 8 a.m., you have 5. At 9 a.m., you have 15. And at 10 a.m., you have 45. So just look at a pattern here. The population is tripling every hour. So if that is the pattern, if that's a function, you just have to apply it moving forward. So at 11 a.m., you just multiply by 3. That would be 135. And then you multiply by 3 again. That'll give you choice D, 405. All right, next from number 8, Gomez's stamp collection contains 4 stamps worth $2 each, 3 stamps worth $4 each, 5 stamps worth $6 each. That's it. If Gomez selects 1 stamp at random from his collection to put on display, what is the probability that the stamp on the display will be worth less than $6? The keyword here is probability. So probability represents a chance, and we could represent this chance, chance, and we could use that using a fraction, so just part over whole. So here, you want to figure out what he has in his collection. He has 4 stamps worth $2, 3 $4, and 5 worth $6. So the part that we want is the part that will be worth less than $6. So the probability of less than $6 means that the part will be the number of stamps less than 6, and the denominator is a whole. So if you want to count the ones that have a value less than $6, that's 7. So it's 4 plus 3, which is equal to 7. So 7 stamps less than $6, and the denominator is the total, so that's going to be 4 plus 3 plus 5, which is 12. So the fraction will be choice C, 7 over 12. For question number 9, the average age of a group of 12 people is 26. If 8 new people are added to the group, then the average age of the group becomes 32. What's the average age of these 8 new people? So here the keyword is average, and average means that it's a total divided by the number of data. So we have to use this average formula several times. So let's find the original average. The original average of the 12 people, that's equal to the total of these 12 people divided by 12, and that's equal to 26. So to solve for the total of 12, this numerator, you can multiply both sides by 12. And when you do that, you cancel out the denominator. So then the total of these 12 people is equal to 26 times 12. And that's going to be 312. Then what you want to do is to use the average formula again for the big group of 20, because 8 more people come in. So the new average is now 32. So that means that the total of these 20 people divided by 20 is now equal to 32. So from here, again, you multiply by 20 on both sides, the denominator to get rid of the denominator. You get that the total of 20 is equal to 640. Now, since you have the total of the 20 people, if you take these two averages and you subtract them, the total of these 20 people subtracted by the total of the 12 people is going to give you the total of the 8 new people. So that's going to be 640 minus 312. And that will give you a total of 328. So that's for just the 8 new people. And now we want to find the average for these 8 new people. We have the total here. So the total of the 8 people divided by 8 is going to be 328 over 8. And that's going to give you the average. And that's going to be 41. 8 times 40 is 320. So 328 divided by 8 is exactly 41. And that's choice D. All right, and here is the summary for this page. All right, next for number 10, what is the midpoint of a line between 0, 2 and 0.2, 8? So the midpoint is just the middle, and the middle you can find by just using the average, because the middle of 2 points is just the average. So if you have 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, the midpoint is going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Just take the coordinates and just average them. So here for 0, 2 and 2, 8, you want to find the midpoint. Take the 0 and the 2 and divide by 2. And then take the 2 and the 8 and divide by 2. And this will give you 2 over 2, 10 over 2, or 1, 5. And that's choice C. All right, next for number 11. If the line containing the points a comma 3 and b comma 2 has a slope of 1/7, then a minus b is equal to. So here you just have to set up the slope formula. From slope, it's the steepness of a line, and you can think of this as rise over run, or change in y over change in x. And this form is going to be important because this is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you subtract the y and then subtract the x. Now, you want a minus b, so it helps if you do 3 minus 2 as opposed to 2 minus 3, and then a minus b. So change in y over change in x will be 3 minus 2 divided by a minus b, and that's given as 1/7. So from here, you can just cross multiply because this is a proportion. On one side, you have a minus b. On the other side, you have 7 times 3 minus 2 is just 1. So you know that a minus b has to be equal to 7. Because 7 times 1 is 7. That's choice E. Next for number 12, which of the following must be true about the product of a positive number greater than 1 and a negative number less than -2. So just pick two numbers here. You want a positive number greater than 1. So you can make this 1.5 or just 2. And you want a negative number less than -2, so let's try -3. If you multiply 2 times -3, that's going to be equal to -6. So here, it could be a, so that could be true, because it is a negative whole number. It is a negative number less than -2, that's okay. It's not greater than -2 though, because numbers greater than -2 will be -1, 0, 1, 2, etc. So choice C is wrong, we've eliminated that. Choice D is actually the same thing as choice B, so the same choice. Or actually, excuse me, it says integer here, not just number, so it is, in fact, could be true. In this case, it is an integer is a whole number. And choice E is wrong because it's not greater than -2. Now, the difference here is that you don't have to have a whole number. You can have a decimal, for example. You can keep the -3, but then a positive number greater than 1 could be 1.5. So 1.5 times -3 will be -4.5. And here it's not an integer anymore, so you eliminate A and D, and that just leaves choice B as the one remaining. So it has to be a negative number, but it doesn't have to be a whole number, it just has to be less than -2. So for number 12, you just substitute in and then eliminate choices, and you have one choice left. All right, next for number 13, on Planet Phillips, the ball is dropped from an open window and the total distance it has fallen is measured each second after it is dropped. As shown in the table above, which of the following graphs best represents the information indicated in the table? So here, just want to look for the pattern. So the pattern here, just you add 60, then you add 100, then you add 140. All right, so here you can see that each time you increase, the number keeps getting bigger, but this in and of itself is getting larger too, so it's not a constant rate. So this is called an exponential function, which means that the rate just increases exponentially. So it's not going to be choice A because this is linear. It has a slope, which means that each step has to be the same number. You keep adding a constant k to go to the next step, which is not true here. Here it's going to be choice B because you start out adding higher and higher. So you add 60, then 100, then 140, then you add 180. So the change keeps getting higher and higher. So that's choice B. It's an exponential function. All right, next for number 14, a certain list of A certain list of numbers contains 19 consecutive even integers beginning with 20. What number is in the middle of this list? So number in the middle means median. So to figure out the median, you can just list out the numbers and then just get the number in the middle. So you start with the number 20, and then you have 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. So it's the 10th number. Once you have the 10th number, you know that that's in the middle because you have 9 numbers less than it and another 9 numbers bigger. And this 10th number is in the middle of this list of 19. All right, next for number 15. In the figure above, if the figure above is rotated 60 degrees clockwise, which of the following would represent the resulting figure? So 60 degrees represents a circle cut into 6 pieces. So each of these would be 60 degrees. Or in this equilateral triangle, and it's clockwise, so it means that you're turning it this way. So this part that's sticking out will actually rotate towards and be a part of this side. The triangle will still look the same because it's an equilateral triangle, but it'll look like this. So that is choice C. Or actually, the triangle will look upside down, excuse me. So this point will end up over here, 60 degrees. And that is choice D. It's also the only one that's pointing in this direction. All right, next for number 16, quadrilateral ABCD has a perimeter of 26 and sides of integer lengths. If AB is equal to M and BC is equal to CD is equal to DA is equal to N, then what's the difference between the greatest and least possible values of N? You have this quadrilateral where 3 sides are actually equal. And then the last side is a lot larger. So something like a trapezoid, if you will. Anyway, so AB is equal to M, the other ones are equal to N. And you want to find the difference between the biggest and possible values of N. Now, there are a couple of restrictions in this shape because when you have, for example, N just equal to 1, just start out with the smallest number, that would mean that the last side would have to be 23 because 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3 and 26 minus 3 is 23. So clearly it's not a shape because, 3 pieces that are just 1 unit long versus one that's 23 units long, there's no way that, this would make a shape at all. So you are restricted by that. This piece has to be somewhat longer than the last remaining piece. So if you try, let's say 2, 2, 2, that would leave 20 left on the other side. And again, this piece of 6 is not longer than 20. So you kind of keep just following the pattern. And you can actually make a table here to help you out. So the 3 sides with N, and you have M. So 1, 1, 1 would be with 23. 2, 2, 2 would be with 20. Then 3, 3, 3, you kind of see the pattern. Just keep subtracting 3 for M. And 9 is not greater than 17. And try 4, 4, 4. That's 12, and that would leave 14. So you're getting a little closer. Then N could also be 5. And when you have 5, 5, 5, that will leave 11. And 5 plus 5 plus 5 is greater than 11. So this shape would actually work. Because 5 plus 5 plus 5 is greater than 11. So 666, again, that is greater than the last piece, which would be, I'm sorry, not 9, it would be 8. And then 777 would be compared to 5. Finally, 888 with 2. And you can't have 999 because that would be a perimeter of greater than 26. So these are the only possible values. So n could actually be 5 or n could be 8. So the difference between 8 minus 5 would be just 3. And there's a typo here. The answer is choice E. All right, next for number 17. 4 people, Anna, Brittany, Casey, and Dawn, exit the building in the reverse order than that in which they entered it. If Casey entered the building first and then Brittany entered the building second, which of the following must be true? So here, you can make a chart. So you have 4 people, they're entering in some order. Now Casey entered the building first, and then Brittany entered the building second. So you have 2 choices left. It's either AD or DA. Now when they leave, they have to go in the reverse order. So that means that either DA or AD leaves first, and then it's B, and then it's C. So just go through all the choices here. Choice 1 has to be false because Casey has to enter last. Exit last, excuse me. That's Roman numeral number 3. And then Brittany must have exited third. These 2 you do know. You don't know whether Anna or Dawn exited first or second. So the answer is going to be choice E here. Next for number 18. In January 2000, B boys and G girls belonged to an art club. If 3 girls joined the club in February 2000 and the ratio of boys to girls remained unchanged, how many boys joined the club in February 2000? So here, you know that in January, you have B boys and G girls. Now, if 3 girls joined in February and then the ratio remained unchanged, you want to figure out how many boys joined the club as well. So in February, you have, instead of G girls, you have G plus 3 girls. And instead of B boys, you'll have B plus X boys. Because I don't know how many boys joined. Now, the ratio, if you divide these girls to boys, it will actually be the same, G over B. So the ratio stayed the same as before. So from here, you can cross multiply with the variables. You have B times G plus 3 has to be equal to G times B plus X. Remember, X is your variable of interest. So what you can do here is just to do inverse operation to solve for X. You can divide by G on both sides. That gives you B over G times G plus 3 is equal to B plus X. So here you can first distribute, and that gives you B over G times G plus 3B over G. Now, G's can cancel out here, so that gives you B plus 3B over G, and that's equal to B plus X. Then if you subtract B from both sides, you get that X is equal to 3B over G, and that corresponds with choice C. The other way to do this is to pick random numbers for B and G, and you could do that to check your work, then substitute back into all the choices to make sure you get the correct answer. Next, number 19, points A and B are distinct points which lie on the circumference of circle with center C. How many points on the circumference of the circle are exactly 3 times as far from point A as they are from point B? So you draw a circle here, And you know that A and B are different points on a circle, so distinct means different. And you could just pick A is here and B is here, and they're on the circumference. And you want to know how many points on the circumference are 3 times as far from point A as they are from point B. So the distance between A and B, that means that you have to cut it into 4 pieces. So if you cut it into 4 pieces, you want a point that's 3 times as far from A. So let's say this point here is 3x away from A. Whereas it's only 1x away from B. So that's one point here. And the other point will actually be if we go the other way. So you split this other distance into 4 pieces. That would be about here. So that's x, 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 x. This point over here would be 3x. Whereas this point to point B would only be x. So 3x is again 3 times bigger than x. So there are 2 points here. There's one here and one here. Next for number 20. A certain clock has a minute hand that is exactly twice as long as its hour hand. If point A is at the tip of the minute hand and point B is at the tip of the hour hand, what's the ratio of the distance that A travels in 3 hours to the distance that point B travels in 9 hours? So you have clock, okay, which is a circle, and it has a minute hand that is twice as long as the hour hand. So we can have the minute hand just extending to, the edge, whereas the hour hand only goes halfway. So if you call the radius of the hour hand h, you can see that it's essentially two smaller circles here. So if we call this hour hand h, the minute hand will be 2h as the radius. Now, for the smaller circle, you want A, which is at the tip of the minute hand, and B is the tip of the hour hand. For the hour hand to travel 9 hours, that would be 9 hours over 12 hours, which is the total, or 3/4 of the circle. So the distance that it travels will be 3/4 of the circumference. And here, the circumference formula is 2 pi r. So the radius, we can call that h. So the distance all the way around will be 2 pi h, but since you only went 3/4 of the way, 3/4 of 2 pi h, cross out the common factor 2, will be 3/2 pi h. So that's for B. Now for the minute hand, you have 3 hours, and 3 hours means that you travel around 3 times around the clock. So when you travel 3 times around the clock, the circumference of the big clock is pi, or 2 pi r, and the radius here is 2h, so that's going to be 4 pi h. And you travel 3 times around, because each hour you go 360 degrees. So you have to do 4 pi h times 3, that's 12 pi h. And you want the ratio of these two. So the ratio of the distance at that point A travels is 12 pi h. And you want to take that ratio to B, which travels in 9 hours. It only goes 3/2 pi h. And here pi h cancels out. So the ratio is 12 to 3/2. And if you multiply both sides by 2, you get 24 to 3, or 8 to 1. So again, this is the answer key, it's choice E. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 1, there are 12 inches in a foot. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. If a snake is 13 feet long, how many centimeters is it? So there's 12 inches in a foot and it's 13 feet. So 13 feet times 12 will give you 156 inches. They have to multiply this by 2.5. So you can estimate here. You can do 150 times 2.5. So you can take this as 150 times 2 plus 150 times 0.5. And 150 times 2 is 300. And 150 times half is 75. So the answer is going to be about 375. And choice E is the closest to that. Next for number 2, if 7x is equal to 4y, and y over z is equal to 7 over 5, then x over z is equal to. So you know that 7x is equal to 4y. Here you can isolate one of these variables. Specifically, you see y here, so let's get y by itself. You can divide by 4. So then you can replace or substitute this y with 7x over 4. So you have 7x over 4 divided by z is equal to 7 over 5. And from here you can cross simplify, or actually rather you can multiply both sides by 4/7, because that will get rid of this numerator, and that will give you exactly x divided by z. And the 7 will cancel out, so that will give you 4/5. That's choice B. For number 3, if 3 raised to the 4th power is equal to 9 raised to the k, then k is equal to. So here, notice that the bases are different, so you can't really do this question. But fortunately, you know that 9 is equal to 3 squared. So you can replace the base with 3 squared. That will give you 3 to the 4th is equal to 3 squared raised to the k power. And here, this is the law of exponent, b to the a to c power is b to the a times c. You do power to power, and then multiply the exponents. So that means that 3 to the 4th will be equal to 3 to the 2k. And here, the exponent 4 and 2k must be equal then. So if 4 is equal to 2k, you divide by 2, you get that k is equal to 2. That's choice A. Next for number 4, 2 companies charge different rates to put tiles on the floor. Company A charges the base price of $50 plus $120 per square foot. Company B charges $20 for a base price, but $1.90 per square foot. If Hector's kitchen floor has an area of S, which of the following represents his costs in cents if he hires Company B to cover his kitchen floor with tiles? So for Company B, $20, so cover $20. Now you're gonna add $1.90 per square foot. Now this area is S square feet, so you'll have to add $1.90 times S. So this is actually choice A. So again, just type on the answer key there. Next one, number 5, in the figure above, the 4 lines intersect as shown. If J is parallel to K, then what's the value of X? So parallel means that they will never touch. And we have the setup for a lot of angles that can actually help us out. To solve for X, you can actually see that X is part of a triangle, and you can solve to get the supplement. So a supplementary angle makes up a straight line. and they add up to 180 degrees. So these two angles add up to 180 degrees. So you can do 180 minus 150 here to get 30. So this angle is 30 degrees. And similarly, this angle is 180 minus 110, which will give you 70. So this angle is 70 degrees. So in this triangle, you have a triangle in which part of it is 70, 30, and x. And triangles also add up to 180 degrees. So 30 plus 70 is equal to 100. So if you do 180 minus 100, you get the remaining angle has to be choice C, 80 degrees. Next for number 6, if the square root of x plus 7 is equal to the square root of x plus 2, then x is equal to. So here, you want to solve for x. And to do so, you see that the square roots are kind of annoying. So you want to get rid of the square roots. So to do that, you can try to square both sides. If you do that, the left side will be x plus 7. And on the right side, you actually have to FOIL. So when you FOIL this, you will have square root of x times the square root of x, which is just x. Then square root of x plus 2, or 2 root x. The inner term is also 2 root x. And the last term is plus 4. So this will be x plus 4 plus 4 root x. So from here, if you subtract x from both sides, and then subtract 4, you get that 3 is equal to 4 times the square root of x. Now again, you want to isolate the x, so you divide by 4, and you get that 3/4 is equal to the square root of x. And then the last step, you can square both sides. You get that 9 over 16 is equal to x. That's choice B. Now you always want to substitute back in to double check. And when you substitute back in, you see that both of these numbers are actually valid. Sometimes you do get a square root of a negative number, which of course can't happen. So that's called an extraneous root. You don't have that here. So plug in to check for extraneous roots. Now sometimes that happens if you are working with square roots. All right, next for number 7, the integer 90 can be expressed as a sum of z consecutive integers. The value of z could be any of the following except. So you want to add consecutive integers, so then they become 90. So you just kind of test it out. So to have 3 numbers that add up together to equal to 90, and they have to be consecutive or next to each other. You can do 90 divided by 3 first to get 30. So 30 is going to be your best bet. If you have 30, 31, and 29, add them together, you get 90. For choice B, if you do 90 divided by 4, it's not divisible by 4, but you do get something close. You do get 22.5. So the numbers around that would be 22, 23, 21, and 24. If you add these together, that will also give you 90. Next up, you have 5. You do 90 divided by 5. That's equal to 18. So just pick the numbers around 18. And you need 5 of those numbers. So if you add these, you will also get a sum of 90. All right, so this is 17. This is 13, so this would be 30, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So A, B, and C are all it. For choice D, if you do 90 divided by 6, you get 15. But 15 is an odd number. And to pick 6 numbers around 15, you're going to see that it's actually impossible. Because the sum will always be off by a little bit. So, for example, you don't know which one to pick. If you pick the one with 18, it'll be too much. But if you pick the one with 12, it'll actually be too little. So it'll always be kind of off. And for 9, 90 divided by 9 is equal to 10. And you can pick 10 as the middle. This is also equal to 90. With 15, it's kind of tough because this is not, you won't get a sum of 90. So the answer is choice D if you just guess and check. Next, for number 8, which of the following expressions are equivalent to 9k squared? So just go through all the choices and try to make it equal to 9k squared. Here you have a negative exponent. If you have a negative exponent, that means it's a reciprocal. But if the negative exponent's in the denominator, it'll end up being in the numerator. So this will just float up to the numerator, and that'll give you 3k in parentheses squared. And then you distribute this exponent using this rule of exponents. A times b raised to the c power is a to the c times b to the c. It's kind of like a distributive property. This will give you 3 squared times k squared, or 9k squared. So Roman numeral 1 is equivalent. So A is wrong, B is wrong, and C is wrong. So Roman numeral 1 is it. So notice that we don't even have to check choice of Roman numeral 3. We just have to check Roman numeral number 2, because that will give us the answer. So to simplify Roman numeral number 2, 8 and 1 and 9 cancel out to give you 9. But here, when you divide k over 6, k to the 6 divided by k cubed, that's this law of exponent. If you divide 2 exponents to the same base, you subtract the exponents. And when you do that, you get k to the 3rd. So this Roman numeral number 2 is actually 9k cubed. And that's not 9k squared. So E is wrong. The answer has to be choice D. All right, and here's a summary for this page. All right, next for number 9, in the figure above, the circles touch each other and the sides of the rectangle at the lettered points shown. Each circle has a circumference of 4 pi. Each of the following is the best approximation of the sum of the areas of the 4 shaded regions. All right, so to get the sum of these shaded regions, you have to first get the radius. So the circumference is 2 pi r of a circle and is equal to 4 pi. So you divide by 2 pi on both sides. You get that the radius is equal to 2. So if the radius is equal to 2, you can actually fill this out for each of these circles. So that means that each of these boxes will have a side of 4. And then the total is going to be an 8 by 8 box. Now, these regions that surround the shape, they're actually the same as the parts that surround this circle. If you just take one of these boxes, that's 4 by 4, and you have a circle inside, you subtract the area of the square minus the area of the circle, and that'll give you 4 of these regions. So area of the square minus area of the circle will give you 4 of those corners. So the area of the square is 4 times 4, or 16, and the area of the circle is pi r squared. And the radius is equal to 2, so this is pi times 2 squared. This is 16 minus 4 pi. And that's equal to 4 of these shapes. And if you count the number of those shapes, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just double this, and that will give you 32 minus 8 pi. Now, pi is approximately 3.14. So if you do 8 times 3, that will give you about 24. And 32 minus 24, it's going to be 8. So the answer is going to be close to 8, a little bit less than that, and that's choice B. So again, you can use the fact that the area of the square minus the area of the circle will give you that approximate shape. And you are estimating there. All right, next for number 10. There are 6 large ferry boats that sail between Seaside City and George's Island. There are 3 small ferry boats that sail between George's Island and Lighthouse Rock. If Nina starts at Seaside City, goes to Lighthouse Rock and back via George's Island in each direction, and she never rides in the same ferry boat twice, how many different arrangements of ferry boats could she ride on? All right, so here you want to draw a diagram. So you have Seaside City to George's Island. There are 6 different routes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now from George's Island and Lighthouse Rock, there are 3 boats. So let's call it A, B, and C. So she goes from Seaside to Lighthouse and back, and she never goes on the same boat twice. That will actually give you some restrictions. So to go there, to Lighthouse Rock, you have to use a permutation. So just use a counting principle. You have 6 options for boat rides, so 1 to 6. And then you have 3 ferries from A to C. That's equal to 18. Now, when you go if you go back to Seaside City, you lost one of these options now because you don't ride on the same boat twice. So you don't have 6 choices, you only have 5 choices, and you don't have 3 choices for the letter boats, you only have 2. And when you multiply, you have 10. So you have 18 ways to get there, 10 different ways to get back. 18 times 10 will give you a total of 180 total permutations, or choice D. So again, you want to use a counting principle for this map. And you want to double check for restrictions. There are restrictions here in which you don't ride the same boat twice. All right, for number 11, the public swimming pool holds about 200 gallons of water when full. The pool is currently 4 fifths full. If pool water costs $5.50 a gallon, what's the cost in dollars of the amount of water needed to fill the rest of the pool? So it's 4 fifths full, so that means you still need 1/5. So 1/5 of the 200 means 1/5 times 200, because that means times, that will give you 40 gallons. Now you have 40 gallons, it costs $5.50 per gallon. So you want to do 40 times 5.5 to get to the final answer. You can just do 5.5 times 4. And that's 22, and I got to move the decimal point over. So 5.5 times 4 is equal to 22, but you have 5.5 times 40 with that extra 0, so that's going to be 220. So the answer is going to be $220. All right, for number 12, in the semicircle above, what's the value of x? So in a semicircle, that's just a circle cut in half. It helps if you find the radius. Now from Q to P, this is the diameter. And the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So the distance between 1, 1 and 1, 9 is 9 minus 1, or the diameter here is 8. The diameter is equal to 8, that's equal to 2 times the radius. So if you divide both sides by 2, you get that the radius is equal to 4. So this point will be 1, 5, because 5 is halfway between 1 and 9. And now since the radius is 4, point L will be 4 plus the 1, or 5 comma 5. Because if you add 4 to the x's, that will give you to point L. All right, next for number 13. If set A is equal to, or consists of all the prime numbers, less than 30, and set B is all the positive multiples of 3, less than 30, then how many elements are in A union B? So this is a union, and union means everything. So you can just write out the two sets. So for set A, you only want prime numbers. Prime is numbers with exactly 2 factors, just one in itself. So you want them less than 30. So 2 is the smallest one, then 3, 5, 7. Skip some of the odd numbers, so 9 doesn't work, 11, 13, 15 doesn't work, so 17, 19, 21's not included, 23, no 25, no 27, and you jump to 29. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 elements. Now for set B, it's all the positive multiples of 3. So it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and 27. Now, you want to combine everything, but you don't want to repeat the duplicates. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 elements here, because you want less than 30. But you do see one duplicate, which is 3. So it's not going to be 10 plus 9, because that's 19. You want to minus a duplicate, that one duplicate, and that's going to give you 18 as the number of elements in A union A with B. All right, next for number 14, AB is parallel to DE, and the angle of DEC is congruent to an angle of CEB. If y is equal to 55 degrees, what's the value of x? So here you have that AB is parallel to DE, which means that these two lines will never meet. Now what you can do, if you know that y is equal to 55, and you know that angle DEC is equal to angle CEB, DEC is equal to 55 degrees, so CEB would also be equal to 55 degrees. Now to get to the value of A, you can actually extend line BE, because angle DEB is 110 degrees if you add this up. And that's going to be the same as this angle up here. So these are called corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are congruent. When you have parallel lines, a corresponding angle kind of forms a letter F here. If you take a look, you have this upside down and also backwards letter F. They're congruent. So once you know that this angle is 110, then you can use the fact that this angle 110 and angle X are supplementary. And supplementary means a straight line or 180 degrees. So two angles are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees here. So X will be equal to 180 minus 110, or 70 degrees. So we have to use a combination of supplementary angles and corresponding angles. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 15. If A plus B is equal to 20, B over C is equal to 4, 1/2 of B is equal to negative 10, what's the value of A plus C? So we can start here. 1/2 of B is equal to negative 10. To get b by itself, you can multiply both sides by 2. And that'll cancel out the 1/2 because they're reciprocals. And that's going to give you b is equal to negative 20. So from here, you can substitute in to the second equation. Negative 20 over c is equal to 4. So you know that negative 20 divided by negative 5 is equal to positive 4. Remember that negative divided by negative is positive. So you know that c has to be equal to negative 5. So once you have that, you can also substitute in b in the first equation, solve for a. So a plus negative 20 is equal to positive 20. And remember, when you add a negative, you're really subtracting. So you're changing this equation to a minus 20 is equal to 20. So add 20 on both sides. That a is equal to 40. So now you have all the info to solve for a plus c. A plus c is equal to 40 plus negative 5, or 40 minus 5. Again, you have adjacent opposite signs. 40 minus 5 is equal to 35. So a plus c is equal to 35 for number 15. For number 16, according to the figure above, NR and MQ intersect at O. What's the value of B if A is equal to 30 degrees? And OP bisects NOQ. So bisect means cut in half. So angle NOQ is here. Again, it's not drawn at scale, so it doesn't look like it's cut in half, but P actually looks kind of like this. So this angle is 30 degrees. That means that this angle also has to be equal to 30 degrees. And now we have something called an opposite angle. So let's erase this line here. Again, if you want to draw it more to scale, P would be right over here. Now you have what are known as opposite angles. When you have this X formation, or vertical angles, the top angle and the bottom angle, they're going to be equal. They'll call opposite or vertical angles. So the top piece is 30 plus 30, or 60. That means the bottom is also equal to 60 degrees. So to figure out the value of B, you know that B has to be equal to 60 degrees. That's the opposite of the top angle. So you want to start with this equation, and for this equation, you can multiply everything by z on both sides to get rid of the annoying denominator of z. So when you do that, you can distribute the left side, and that will give you 2z squared minus 2 is equal to 4z, and you can also just divide by 2, which will give you z squared minus 1 is equal to 2z. Now from here, you can subtract 2z on both sides, and that'll give you this quadratic. And from here, you can actually see that this quadratic cannot be solved with rational numbers. So there's probably a typo here again, because you can't solve for z. If you try to solve for z, you have to use the quadratic formula, or you can use factor by grouping. A factor by grouping might be a little easier. Here you can add 1 on both sides. And the factor that we actually need is add 1. So you add 1 again to both sides, and now you have a perfect square on the left. So on the left side, that will give you z minus 1 times z minus 1, and that's equal to 2. Or z minus 1 squared is equal to 2. So to solve for z, using this method, you have to do the square root, and that will give you z minus 1 is equal to positive or negative root 2. So z is equal to positive or negative root 2 plus 1. So here we have irrational roots for z, and it could be, 1 of 2 answers. So You probably can't solve for this using a rational number. Remember, for this section, you can't substitute anything with a square root into it. So even if you were able to substitute in, you'll get some weird number with a root 2 in it. Because if you square even 1 plus root 2, if you substitute in for z, that's 2 times 1 plus root 2 squared. If you FOIL this, you end up with 1 plus root 2 plus root 2 plus 2, or 3 plus root 2, and there's no way you can bubble this into the section. So there's a typo here again. They probably meant to add this or something. All right, next for number 18, the above figure is the right cylindrical solid with a volume of 480 cubic feet. If its height is 15 feet, what is the area of the square feet of the shaded portion, which is just the base? So the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the h, times the height. And we have to get the radius, which is going to be some radius r. So you know that a volume is 480 cubic feet. Which is equal to pi times the radius of r squared times h. And we know our height is 15. So if you divide both sides by 15, you get that 32 is equal to pi r squared. And you want to find just the area of the square feet. So here, the square feet portion is just going to be 32. All right, next for number 19. For all integers a, f of a is defined below. So f of a is equal to 5a when a is odd, and f of a is a cubed when a is even. I'm going to do f of 4 minus f of 11 is equal to x. What's if I have x to the 4th power? So here these are functions, and a function is just an input-output machine. And for these input-output machines, you need to just substitute in. So for the first function, a is even. So if a is even, you'll have to do this rule. So f of a will be a cubed, or 4 cubed. And 4 cubed is 64. Now for the second number, 11 is odd. So that's going to be the first function. F of a in this case will be 5a. So you substitute in 11, it'll be 5 times 11, or 55. So you'll have to do 64 minus 55, which will give you 9. And that's equal to x. But you don't want 9, you want x to the 4th power. So you have to do 9 to the 4th power, which is 9 times 9 times 9 times 9, or 81 times 81. I'm sorry, that should be a... No, that should be an 8. Sorry, that should be a 6. There you go. So the answer is 6,561, or 8 to the 4th power. All right, next for number 20. For all numbers k, where k is not equal to 4, let f of k is equal to k plus 8 divided by 4 minus k. If f of k is equal to 5 halves, what's the value of k? So here's another function. We know the output here. We just set that equal to the input. So k plus 8 divided by 4 minus k has to be equal to 5 over 2. So to solve this proportion, you cross multiply. And when you do so, you end up with 2 times k plus 8 is equal to 5 times 4 minus k. And here you have to distribute the number in front. So I'll give you 2k plus 16 is equal to 20 minus 5k. And from here, you can add 5k to both sides to get the k on the left. And you want to subtract 16 to get that 7k is equal to 4. If you divide by 7, you get that k is equal to 4/7. All right, and here's the summary for this page. And just be wary of the issue with number 17. All right, thank you everyone for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.